Good Gab, sponsored by Skillskin, a nonprofit organization empowering individuals with disabilities through employment. I am electrified today. I got to tell you what, our guest today is pretty awesome. You've probably seen him around. It's Tom Simpson, leader of Ignite Northwest, Spokane Angel Alliance, and Kickstart Seed Fund. It's Tom Simpson, everybody.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited about the opportunity to meet you and learn more about you as well.
Heck yeah. Well, I know at Skillskin, we got our hands on all sorts of stuff, kind of like you. So yeah, what's new on the horizon? What's happening at Angel Alliance? What's going on?
Well, I think what's really new is Spokane has really benefited from the pandemic. In my world,
tell us more.
In my world, we're seeing, because of the pandemic and because of remote work and has been embraced, a lot of talent has moved to Spokane. You know, people that were otherwise living in, Seattle, the Bay Area, or elsewhere, and working for large, recognizable tech companies, they were given the opportunity then, if they so chose, to move to a place like Spokane.
I can think of a few people, just my friends that did
Everybody
that.
can think of someone. And they've moved to Spokane. Now, perhaps they've kept their jobs at Apple or Google or Facebook or one of those companies, but they're here in our community, and they're serving as angel investors, they're serving as mentors, they're serving as board members, which is really helping fuel our entrepreneurial ecosystem. Then, on the flip side, one legitimate complaint about growing a company in Spokane is, can you really hire people?
Right.
Now, we can, if we have a job opening, we can turn it on and hire anybody globally. Now, they may not move to Spokane, but we can still tap into their experience. They can join the company, and they still may work elsewhere. But the dual side of that equation has really contributed and fueled the number of new companies in Spokane. A great example, a company called SecureSave, founded by Devin Miller, and they provide emergency savings accounts like HSAs for large companies.
Okay.
He started this company in Seattle. It was kind of incubated at a very prominent incubator in Seattle called Pioneer Square Labs. I actually got wind of it and made a small investment in the company. But shortly after I invested, Devin Miller picked up the phone and called me and said, "Hey, Tom, tell me a little bit about Spokane." And he's got a large family, growing kids, and he goes, "You know what? I want to leave the Seattle area and come to Spokane." So he's a great example of someone who, a great idea, well-funded, but has moved to Spokane.
Incredible. And can. Like
Right.
you said, this workforce is changing.
Yep,
People know about us now.
Yep.
Wow.
And then a lot of the people that are coming here are really coming here for lifestyle reasons. I mean, they're smart, talented people, they're family-oriented, or they're outdoors, and they just love what this region has to offer.
It can't really be beat very easily anyway. I think it's a really special place.
Well,
like,
you're a
Spokane native. I'm a Spokane native. Yeah.
Even though you went to Ferris and I went to LC.
Yeah, I'll forgive you.
That's okay.
But yeah, it's like such an amazing place to be. I can understand why people, want to bring their businesses here. And so, okay, pandemic changed the way that we can access workforce. How does capital flow into this world now?
In Spokane, we have a number of different sources of capital for emerging companies. There's a Spokane Angel Alliance, which I manage, and since inception, the members of the SAA have put about $75 million into, ironically, about 75 companies.
Nice. Thank you.
We have Ignite, a nonprofit accelerator that I run, has some loan funds that we're able to put into companies that are otherwise been turned down by a bank. Since inception, I'll get these numbers are approximate, but
Sure.
Over 30 companies have received over $12 million in capital. And really, if you look at some of the more intriguing startups in Spokane, they've all tapped into both the Spokane Angel Alliance and the Ignite loan funds. I have a family of angel investment funds called the Kickstart Seed Fund, through which I put over $12 million into about 50 companies since inception. There's some other active angel investors in Spokane, such as the Coles Ventures. So there are sources of funding for early stage companies. And most of this capital is really targeted at the seed or pre-seed stage, where really there's the biggest gap. Someone needs maybe as little as, it sounds little, but it's a lot of money, but in the capital formation range, it is little. As low as maybe $100,000 or $250,000 up to $1 million.
So taking that idea and starting to get it past conception.
And just getting it started. And that's the hardest place or stage to get capital. But we have a number of resources in town to fill that. Now, once you have revenues and customers and all those sort of things, frankly, the world's awash in capital.
Right.
And you can go get a Series A or a larger financing from firms in Seattle or the Bay Area. Great example is Treasury 4 here in Spokane, led by Steve Helmbrecht, a fintech company. I was one of the very early investors in the company. The Spokane Angel Alliance members there backed the company. Ignite provided a loan. But last year, they went out and they raised $20 million from a very prominent VC fund called WestCap in the Bay Area. So once you're there, there's lots of money. And at the early stage, we have a number of mechanisms here in town.
So what does that do for a community then? Because it's just on the surface, when I'm thinking about it, it's like, well, dang, we're like giving people their opportunity to explore their dreams and really connect into, Spokane. When they have maybe, let's say, even a moderate success or just starting something, like, how does that impact our town?
Well, it's absolutely necessary. It's critical. It's vital. It's must have. It's something we need to focus on. Think of a business. A growing business has, they have their cash cows, their existing products and services that are stable, generating revenues. But those products have a life cycle.
Right.
But every smart business also has its rising stars, its new products, its new services. Maybe today it's something that has AI. That's going to be the future. Communities need to have that too. Spokane and all communities have its sizable, large companies or organizations or entities like Fairchild that create jobs, but they have their own life cycle. They may not be around forever. So on the other end, you need to be fueling the rising stars. You need to have a mechanism that promotes, in the business example, new products and services. In the company, in the city example, new companies. That's what we're doing with the Spokane Angel Alliance and Kickstart and Ignite, is fueling these new companies. So when we flash forward 5, 10, 15, 20 years, we have the new companies that then become the cash cows. It's a cycle. It's a process. It's a flywheel.
And it needs to work together.
Yes.
With everything else.
Right.
Okay, so also something that pops up in my mind is like, oh, we build some awesome businesses here and then people buy them or they leave. Maybe that's just natural then, because we got to have a pipeline of new coming in.
It is natural. These companies, if you look back, Packet Engines and Worldwide Packets and several other examples of companies that grew and they got acquired. Unfortunately, you can't always control what happens when a company gets acquired. Now, in a perfect example, you have companies that grow like that and they stay here. Maybe they don't get acquired or they go public. And then from that, these companies spawn new startups and new companies, and that becomes a flywheel. I mean, a great example in Boise is Micron.
Right.
That company started and grew and now has spun out all sorts of new companies and talent. In Microsoft, in Seattle years ago, you had Microsoft that did the same thing. Spokane is waiting for that. We need to have that company.
It's coming.
Itron's, somewhat of an example of that. It was started through back then Washington Water Power, but those events are necessary for a community to really prosper and thrive in that realm.
So what can do you have any ideas what a community can do to kind of set themselves up to be host for a company like that could be
You know,
rising
well,
right now?
you know, a lot of it is, ensuring that you have the organizations, so like the one I referred to, but also critical to that is that the DNA of the community and the policymakers have to intentionally make entrepreneurship a priority and recognize that what I'm talking about with the rising stars and the cash in the cash cows, that business matrix, that philosophy is vital and important, and they prioritize entrepreneurship. Boise's done a great job of that.
Make
The
it
city
easy
of
to do
Boise
business.
funds meaningful dollars into it. Boulder, Colorado, Bend, Oregon. So it takes a community-wide effort and focus on entrepreneurship for it to optimally succeed.
Just like you would, amenities of a city, that needs to be a focus. I hear you loud and clear.
Yep,
That
yep,
makes sense.
yep.
And there's an excitement that happens too around that world. Well, I'm really curious. How did you get into this world? Coming
it's
from
funny.
LC and all.
Well, it's funny. I ask myself that question all the time because I was the youngest of four boys in a family. My dad was a conservative local attorney here in Spokane. Back then, entrepreneurship was scary and frightening. Back when I grew up, if you failed at something, you might as well just move to Siberia and never come home. And so,
These family values sound familiar.
yeah, I mean, that's the way I brought it. But I started life, I was a CPA for a number of years, went to the U of W, came back to Spokane because I've always loved Spokane. But then I slowly kind of got exposed to entrepreneurship. I went to business school on the East Coast. Then I moved back to Seattle where I was an investment banker for about 9 years. And that's when Seattle really became a rising entrepreneurial and tech hub.
So you had an upfront view of what it could be.
I got to know a lot of the people. I got to know a lot of the venture capitalists, and I really was excited about their visions and kind of just the tenacity and creativity around starting the company. Then I became a venture capitalist. I had a large venture fund for a number of years, and then I kept getting closer to it. I was teaching a class at Gonzaga University, and myself and one of my students came up with an idea for an e-commerce company. We started it. We grew it to about 120 million in revenues. We sold it a number of years ago. So I slowly got exposed to all of it.
Closer to the sun, and you were like, all right, let's do this.
Exactly. So then really ever since we sold the company, I've just really been deeply involved as an angel investor and a mentor and accelerator to entrepreneurs and founders in the community.
Okay, so why do you stay in Spokane then? Because you could go anywhere.
Back at you. Because you and I both love Spokane.
It's true.
We
It's
love
true.
this area for all the reasons that we could talk for hours about. But we love the region. I think we're both giving back in many ways. I really enjoy knowing that I'm helping young people, just like you're helping people with disabilities. So there's a lot of self-satisfaction in that. And I think if you're doing something that you love, it's not really a job.
I have only recently learned that since,
Yeah.
I started to get into this business and, supporting, what the next version of the workforce can be for
Yep.
people living with disabilities.
Yep.
Man, it's fun.
It is. And we're in a community we love. We're in a community that's fraught with opportunity. It's a growing community. We're doing things that we're passionate about. So
Keep going.
my grandmother always told me, blossom where you're planted.
Ooh, that's
So,
really nice.
I'm
Good
not
job,
going, I'm
Grandma.
not going. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, me either. This place is just too good.
Yep.
So what's on the horizon then? Do you anything to share with us? Any companies, any people, or any sectors that you're like, hey, pay attention, Spokane?
The sector thing, because this is a regionally reasonably small sandbox.
Sure.
I don't really look specifically at software companies or consumer companies or healthcare companies, but
it's still people.
but I really kind of look at people, ideas, and markets. A couple of new interesting companies I backed. One is My Green Labs, led by James Conley here in Spokane, another LC graduate, and his company is they certify labs around the world and lab products for environmental sustainability. Great company. They've been backed by members of the SAA, by my Kickstart funds, by Ignite, and they're killing it. They've got a lot of great partners around the globe, and it is a global company.
So that's right here.
So that's one. Another one is Lighthouse Health, started by David Heath, and David is another Spokane native. And he has been a healthcare executive for a number of years, and he was struck by the opportunity to solve the nursing crisis by bringing nurses that are in our local community or maybe have been sidelined a little bit back into the workforce and able to fill shifts at multiple hospital systems within a region. He's launched his company called Lighthouse Health, put together a terrific team based here in Spokane. And
solving
also,
a major
So those
issue.
are two really kind of interesting new companies here in Spokane that I'm super excited about, that I'm working closely with.
That's so incredible. So I bet you get pitched all the time. There's all sorts of ideas come your way. Like, it's got to be pretty exciting to be in your world.
It's exciting, but you know what? Entrepreneurship does get overly romanticized because, hey, being an entrepreneur, that sounds cool. You're doing all this stuff, and you got a ping pong table in your office and cool coffee machines and
are you in my brain?
And all that. But what people forget is the sleepless nights, the products that don't work, the customers that need a lot of care and feeding, and it's hard work, and it's not necessarily for everybody. It can be, well, it's chaotic sometimes. So it's hard. So I mean, but it's I enjoy it. But I tell you, all the calls that I have with the companies I'm involved with aren't all rainbows and sunshine. There are, hey, we're running out of capital. This customer just switched to somebody else. My lead product designer just left. This new competitor just came up. Help. What do you do? And these are all emerging ideas for which you just don't take, oh, I know that problem. Use this wrench. Tighten it. It's fixed. It's the solutions aren't that easy.
Right. Damn. Well, I love being able to be engaged with people like that and helping. I mean, that's what you're doing, is truly helping.
Yep.
Maybe thinking about all the people that you're connected with, is there any commonality and leadership traits or anything that, people are going to start businesses or something that you look for?
One of the first questions that I ask somebody when they come into my office to pitch an idea is, why are you here? What inspired you? And you really have to have that passion. And think of Bill Gates when he started Microsoft. Think of Howard Schultz when he started Starbucks. Think of Phil Knight when he started Nike. Those people had this idea that they were so passionate about and so excited about that they were able to start their company and make it through the dark days because they
had to come out.
They just loved their idea. They knew they were going to be successful. So that's the common trait. They're not going to give up. They're going to do whatever it takes. And I'll never forget, I kind of had the good fortune of knowing Howard Schultz early on of Starbucks. And I'll never forget, I was living in Seattle at the time, and he was opening up a brand new Starbucks in U Village. And it was Christmas Eve, and I was going down there, and they kind of had done a soft opening, and I was getting a latte or something. And I looked out of the corner of my eye. It was Christmas Eve. Howard Schultz was on a ladder in the corner stocking the shelves.
Making things happen.
He was rolling up his sleeves, and he was involved. And although it was Christmas Eve, he knew it had to be done. The founders I see that succeed, they're just tenacious. They're working 24/7. Now, it may not be good for work-life balance. That's a different topic, but they just have that it factor, that drive to get it done, to get what it takes to get it done.
We talk Oddly enough, we talk a lot about that in the disability space. It's like, hey, you just got to keep trying, and the iterative process.
Yep.
Like, do you have a personal philosophy around like failure too? Because I don't know, in society, at least I'll just speak for myself. Like in my family, it was similar to like failure is not a possibility.
Right.
You keep going.
Yep.
But I'm learning. No, it's just a process. And you're iterating through.
Oh,
Any
my
thoughts on that?
my view on failure is, failure, quite frankly, as an entrepreneur is a badge of honor. Now, as long as you didn't lie, cheat, commit fraud, or any of those sort of things,
have values.
if the dog just didn't hunt, I mean, you gave it your all, but for whatever reason, your market timing was wrong, or your sales strategy was wrong, or for whatever reason it didn't work out. That's a badge of honor almost. And because you learn more from your failures than you do your successes. Now, I kind of have one little rule I loosely follow. I tell myself I will not invest in a company whose founder's last company was their first company and it was a success. Because they went out, they came up with an idea, they started a company, it was highly successful, and they just think, man, I got the mojo, I know how to do this. And I'll say, you know what, the next one will probably be a failure because they haven't learned the downside. And I've seen that pattern where their first company is successful, the next one isn't. Now, the third one I'll jump into.
Right.
Because now they've learned. Yeah. But failure, you learn so much from failures.
Yeah, I know. I just talk about that with our teams all the time. Just for me personally, I sure learned a lot more when I failed than ever I did when I was successful.
Yep.
And it's just been a thread throughout my life, and we get to talk about that with people with disabilities all the time. It's awesome.
Learn a lot more.
Well, Tom, I'm really curious. Any other ideas you want to share with our audience, or any vision for Spokane that you're thinking about right now?
I guess in terms of a vision for Spokane, if I could accomplish one thing, it would be getting all the influencers in our community, the policymakers, the politicians, to fully recognize and embrace that putting a priority on entrepreneurship would be in everybody's best interest. Having more companies that grow and succeed increases our tax base, likely increases the overall wage level because many of these companies are paying, high wages, brings in incremental talent into our community. And so that would be a vision. It's of course my vision, but one that I'd optimally and ideally love to see more broadly embraced.
I love it. Well, I can share in that vision, and I bet you some of you in our audience can too. Tom Simpson, thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, and it's great to learn more about you and your background and what you're doing, and I look forward to learning more from you.
All right.